Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Awaken Your Truth conversation. My name is Denise Simone, and I'm a life coach and intuitive counselor. And today I'm really excited because I get to have a conversation with an incredible woman who has truly inspired me through her own personal story. Her name is Angela Howell. When I met Angela, I knew, just by hearing a little bit about her story, I knew that I had to share it. At the age of 13, Angela suffered severely with bulimia and anorexia, and she battled with it for many years until she decided to go within on her own personal healing journey. She reached a point in her life where she was experiencing great outwardly success. She was working for a Fortune 500 company, receiving lots of awards and accolades. And even though everything looked super great for her on the outside, she felt like something was missing on the inside. And so with that, she has since then decided to use her story and use her gifts to serve others. And she does this through her books and through her seminars and through speaking. With that, I am really excited to have her here today. So, Angela, welcome.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so glad to be speaking with you today. That was a lovely introduction. Wow. Let's go get her. No, no, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I am still walking towards it. I don't think we ever fully arrive. But here I am today after a good bit of time on the journey and as always, still seeking to find more truth.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for letting me have this time with you. And when I jumped on your website and I saw your story, I just knew that it had to be shared because although your challenge did show up for you in the form of an eating disorder, it's really not about what's happening outside of us. I mean, it is, but it's just a manifestation of the inner conflict. So that's really, what I want to walk through today is how that arises within us and then our journey through it and then ultimately using it, not it using us. So with that, I want to ask you, when you think back, can you think of a time when you felt really free and really whole and just like this pure sense of you were okay just the way you were?
I can. I recently talked about that with some work that I'm still doing. The last time I remember really feeling that way was about age 5,
Mm, yeah.
where I was untainted by trauma and still believing that everything is good, that I'm safe and secure, and I hadn't adopted many of the messages that would later distort those beliefs, those
Mm,
inherent beliefs of goodness.
yeah. And I bring that up because it's so important to know that that is why we take on these challenges because of these messages. It's not about anything being wrong with us. It's just about us finding a different way to maneuver through life so we could feel a sense of safety. So for you, what were some of the things and the messages that you were witnessing around you?
I lived, in a family where everything looked good. My dad was a professional athlete. My mom was a beautiful teacher, and everything externally looked good. But behind the scenes, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of focus on food and dieting, and then I would see them eat things that they had said they didn't want to eat. So I saw this conflicting behavior, and I just got a sense um, that I was just sort of there for the ride. That I was an extension of them, and just needed to go along and behave and be quiet. And I guess I learned at a very young age to people please and be a chameleon and just fit in to
Mm,
my family. not to mention to the world.
Yeah. And that's really important because it shows up differently in how we take on behaviors based on what we're believing about ourselves, but ultimately the goal is to feel we create a new identity, to feel a sense of acceptance and love and approval, right? But what happens is when we're doing this, we become somebody different. Ultimately, right? We just put on a mask, and life, even though it looks like it's fighting us, what happens is it will show up in ways to serve us so we could get to that truthful place within us. And it will do anything it has to do to get us there. So for you, take us back to that place where you decided something had to shift and you needed help.
That really happened for me at age 17. My eating disorder, the thought of wanting to be thin started at age 9. And the beliefs about my worth being attached to my looks, to my body, looking a certain way and being a certain size, that all shaped very, very young based on the messages I was getting through my family. By 17, I was in full-blown eating disorder and depression. Everything was a secret. I had no idea that I had an illness, a disease that other people knew about. I thought I was just very defective and weird. And a former best friend from junior high, I learned was in the hospital for anorexia. And when I looked it up, I thought, wow, I need to be in there. This is what could help me. And so I was able to get into my first treatment center. I was so depressed at the time. My recovery has been a process. So I've been inpatient 3 times, but that was the first point where I just felt life can't keep working this way. And I went into the treatment center. I was in there for 12 weeks. I learned a whole lot about recovery and spirituality, things I'd never heard before. But I think I was just too young to grasp it all. It planted some really great seeds. But as it turns out, I continued in my eating disorder. I continued dealing with depression, probably until, well, a few years later, I ended up in treatment again. At that point, I was really physically in danger. I was to the point of purging blood. My therapist at the time was threatening to check me in somewhere. I needed to stop. I couldn't stop. I'm like, okay, I don't want to go to treatment again. I'm going to stop. I couldn't go 24 hours without doing it, knowing that the very next time I could rupture my esophagus and die. But the need to numb out, the need to medicate and escape and run from my feelings was just too great. It's a mental illness. I mean, an eating disorder is a mental illness. You're not thinking straight. People would tell me, I don't understand. Why can't you just stop? It just doesn't work that way once those hooks are in. And I went to that treatment center, and because I just didn't want to die, I still wasn't ready to live. Another year later, I finally hit an absolute rock bottom with my eating disorder controlling my life. I'd gone through meeting the man I was going to marry. I went through the wedding plans, the parents fighting over who would get to sit in the front pew. Just the stress of all of that did me in. We went on our honeymoon, and when I came back, I went to treatment again. And that was when I was finally ready to live.
Wow.
And that was that was 1992. But it's been a journey ever since, because once you stop one way of acting out, there's still healing that has to happen in the soul.
Absolutely.
And like you said, life will continue to give you opportunities to practice until the healing, just so that the healing can continue. The lessons might look different.
Yes. So powerful. There's so much opportunity to learn in what you just said, because I think there's a common misconception out there that asking for help equals weakness. How can we shift that? How can we shift that so listeners can really know that it's actually wisdom?
I think that's a very good point. I grew up believing that if you had needs, you were weak. Much less if you asked for help. You shouldn't even have the needs to start with. So I think it takes immense courage to ask for help, as you probably would agree. But yes, there is a misconception that we should be able to suck it up. I can't even tell you how many times I've been told, suck it up, go on, be strong. And sometimes we absolutely need to let ourselves fall apart. That could be the most courageous thing we ever do. And as my journey circles, it's like a circle as opposed to just a linear straight up. I'm still even today in that place where in some ways I need to absolutely let myself fall apart so that I can move to the next step.
Yeah. Because that's your truth in the moment, and you have to honor that as it comes up. Yeah, that's such a great point. So the other part of that, what you said that I thought was really important, is that it didn't take just one time for you to find this sense of freedom from your addiction. It's not about getting to a destination. It's about every moment being a new beginning. From your story, it's like, how much were you willing to pick yourself up again? For you to keep going is really powerful. Is really, I just want to acknowledge you for that, because that's the point here, right? Is to reach a new part of us that believes that it's possible. And every time we get taken down, we always have that choice. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important to know that, because life will keep throwing us these, I don't want to know if I want to call them tests, but life will throw us whatever it's going to throw us, but it's up to us to keep choosing again and again. Would you say it got easier for you the more you chose the right action?
I think definitely yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get new opportunities to say yes to. But one right action always makes it easier to make another right action. And so I love all the different things that we can read about. One small step can lead to great change, because I don't know anyone that makes a giant leap. It's every giant success that you see, I believe there's so many little steps that were made to get there. And we tend to look at the big outcome and forget about all the little steps. But even in day-to-day living, I just love the concept that big things happen with little steps.
Yes, absolutely. Can you talk about what are some of the tools that have really worked for you? Like meditation, forgiveness. What are like your most powerful go-tos that really keep you connected to yourself?
That's a really good question, and it's something that I still struggle with on any given day. I learned very early on a practice of dissociation, and whether that was through busyness or through being an overachiever, workaholism, my eating disorder, I had many, many ways that I stayed disconnected. And so I'm still today on the journey to be willing to show up and be present with myself. I do have tools that help me do that. It's just, again, on any given day, am I willing to make those choices? Am I willing to face the fear that I attach to being present with myself? Mm-hmm. When on a good day, I will read something powerful or positive. I have one of my biggest secrets. Affirmations are not a secret, but what I do with affirmations is I write them in the state that I want to feel. It feels so good now that I, fill in the blank. And then what I do is record those into an MP3 player or into a phone so that I can play those back on a day where I'm not feeling so good. And I need to hear from my higher self, the higher self that recorded it on a different day. And sometimes I run for those headphones like it's oxygen. That is just like it soothes me and brings me back to myself when I've left myself and gone into a very fearful state. Yeah. I love walking. I'm a huge nature fan. Something about stepping outside and breathing fresh air, whether it's cold like it is right now or warm, it doesn't matter. Something about that helps me come back to myself. Music is another huge tool. I love to listen to different kinds of music that can be playful or can be relaxing, soothing, whatever I might need at the moment. So I have a toolbox. Again, it just comes back to that choice. And I'm at a point in my life where there's a lot of change going on, and it's like I get those opportunities to choose again. Do I want to disconnect or do I want to connect?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's important to understand affirmations. I love the way you use them. When I was using them, they didn't tend to work for me in the beginning because I was still so tapped into the pain. And I love to talk about this because I think a lot of people struggle with that. They try to use them, but it's almost like a band aid. So I want to know from you, do you think we have to reach a certain development in how we relate to our pain so we can integrate both of them? Does that make sense?
It does. I think in the beginning, a lot of people are just told to go write down some affirmations. And so they pull generic affirmations out of a hat somewhere and they read them, but they're not really connected to them and they don't really believe them. Therefore, they don't really work. They're not buying it. And so, as you know, I have a coaching program that I've written. It's called A Life Worth Having. And the very, very first step that I feel is key is bringing out all the negative self messages that run, those tapes that play, because those are the keys
Yes.
to the real affirmations that will be effective. So we have to know what's playing and affecting us negatively, I think, before we can, what I call is come out with the anti-venom, right? So if you get bit by a snake, you need an anti-venom to counteract the effect of that poison. And I feel like the talk in our head is the same. The negative self-chatter for me is poison. But it's all I've known. I grew up with all this poison that just runs constantly. So I think once you identify what's holding you back, then we can turn those into affirmations that counteract each specific negative belief. And to me, that is a more useful way to go to use the tool of affirmations than just coming up with some random, like, Denise, let me give you my top 10 affirmations and you can use them for yourself.
Right.
Affirmations are not one size fits all, in my opinion.
Yes. And would you say it's more of a gradual thing where sometimes you have to shift and maneuver these affirmations so they're fitting to where you are in the moment? You can't jump from a completely negative thought to this thought that has no vibrational match to you and who you're being in that moment. Would you say it's more of a gradual shift of how you phrase them?
I like to tell people to try a test. So if I say to myself, I feel horrible, I feel miserable, it's ugly outside, I feel awful, I feel awful, I feel awful, I can feel the vibrational pull pulling me down. And I really may feel that way. But if you then say the opposite, this just works for me. I feel great. Wow, I feel good today. I feel healthy, I feel rested, I feel peaceful. Just repeating the words, for me, I feel an inner shift. So I do believe that anybody in a dark place, that it's not instantaneous. Maybe that's what you're asking, but I do believe that our subconscious believes whatever we tell it. And we can keep telling it the bad stuff and make ourselves feel bad, or we can start putting in good stuff and feel the effects of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I want to shift a little bit into the transitioning of your career because I noticed that you mentioned that when things started coming together, you started working in the corporate world. And again, the pattern of everything looking good externally was something that was manifesting for you. Is that true?
Yes, definitely. I graduated from college and shortly, trying to think about the time frame, I think that the final eating disorder treatment was coinciding closely before going to work. So I was feeling good about myself. I wasn't binging, purging, and starving anymore. I wasn't obsessed with my body and my weight as much as I had been. I moved right into workaholism. Mm-hmm. I went to work. in corporate sales, and I had to be the best. I had to derive my worth from being the best. I won, salesperson of the month, salesperson of the quarter, salesperson of the year. I won trips, prizes, bonuses, and I thrived on the attention and the accolades of being the best. So it really was another form of external validation as opposed to just feeling good about who Angela is as a core person, who she was created to be, not who she performed to be.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's so important to bring up, because when we're on our path to healing, we, without even realizing it, will think that, we're heading in the direction of our truth, when we're really just attempting to mask all over again. And there's a big shift when you realize that it's completely irrelevant what our external life looks like. And it's really about how we're feeling. Because when we connect to this feeling of embracing all of who we are, what is given to us along our path, we're meant to be experiencing that. Because in the end, it's all a part of us. All of it's a part of us. And all of it is to be used. It's not about, oh, we're going to shove this away in this corner and we're going to only bring out what is shiny and nice and looks acceptable. It's about taking it all and making it purposeful, right? Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. About 2 years ago, I had the realization, I left the corporate world about 10 years ago and have been a professional photographer since then, and a couple of other things, and started writing. And it's easy to.
I just want to ask you, what made you leave that? Was there a defining moment for you where you just said, enough is enough? I have to walk away, or was it a gradual thing?
There were two events. The first one was 9/11. When that hit, my son was 5. I'd been a workaholic. When he was in the car, I was on the phone at night. Other than dinner and bedtime, bath time, mommy was on the computer or mommy was on the phone. And when 9/11 hit, it just was an awakening for me. I thought, what am I doing? I'm working. I'm not present. I'm missing my son growing up. So that was the first shift. And I announced to my employer at the time that I wanted to leave, and they convinced me to stay to the end of the year. All my friends laughed and said, you will not survive a week at home. I stayed home a couple of years, and then life circumstance put me back to work. But it's really funny, exactly what you were talking about earlier, how life will not stop giving us these opportunities. I started a different job, and within 3 months of being in the field, without going into it, the physical requirements put my body in a state of chaos. And I ultimately went out on disability. I mean, it was amazing how quickly it happened. It was as if to say, no, okay, I thought I had you out the first time, so I'm going to have to take you out. That's how I interpret it, is that I was not meant to go in and do a mindless, it wasn't what I was meant to do. I had too much other things I was meant to do besides that. And so we get gentle suggestions, and sometimes we get more forceful suggestions. And the disability one was a strong one, and I couldn't fight it. I mean, what can you do? My arms ended up being, both were ripped, ended up having multiple shoulder surgeries. And during that time of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with myself? I've always worked. What am I going to do now? That's when I found photography. And that's when I started writing. That's when the pieces of Angela, that 5-year-old who loved life and loved everyone in it, could start to surface again. And it's been a an ongoing process with allowing it, fighting it, allowing it, fighting it, and wanting to run and take that temptation to go back and go after that big paycheck that I know that I could get, but I was so unfulfilled.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the long answer to your question about how I chose to leave the corporate setting. I chose first it was voluntary, second time not so voluntary, but still I'm grateful for I wouldn't trade any of it.
Yeah. Yep. It's amazing how life unfolds in that way. It really shows us, if we're really paying attention, it will show us the next steps. It's just how I think we interpret them, you know? So when I use that term, awaken to your truth, when you hear that, what do you most resonate with?
Well, I love that. I love awaken your truth. I feel so much energy in just even saying that. Awaken your truth to me means that process of finding out what contribution you're here to make to the world. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? Who do you want to serve? I really feel like we all have a beautiful spirit inside, but we're taught, many of us are taught, go get a job, make a lot of money, get married, raise a family. And I love this. One of my favorite quotes is a story about a guy who comes home and tells his daughter something about, people uh, were drawing. I'm not going to be able to tell the story good. But the point was the little girl couldn't understand how adults could have forgotten how to draw. It was something like that. It's a great, but we're all born with these gifts. But society sort of, just the way that it sort of sucks it out of us. And we conform and we lose our uniqueness. It gets buried.
Yeah.
Under all the things that we're told we should do and we should be. So for me, awaken your truth is finding what your jewel is.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that your eating disorder assisted you in that?
Absolutely. I mean, my upcoming book is titled that for a reason. How my eating disorder saved my life. Usually that would be backwards. I mean, my eating disorder almost took my life, but at 17, it put me on a path of finding my truth. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would be here today. I really don't. So I am super grateful for all the things that at the time appeared to be obstacles that helped to awaken my truth.
I love it. I love that.
Hence the name for what I'm working, my work now, Finding the Gift. Yeah. Finding the gift is so much about awakening your truth. It's so similar. It's looking for the pearls in everything that comes our way. Yes. There is a gift in everything.
Everything. And it's not just, it's in every moment. You have to be willing to see it and find it. I love it.
So, right. Your eyes have to be open.
They have to be
right?
open.
They have to be open. I mean, I think so many people go through with blinders on. I've done that. I understand that. I have a free offering on my website at findingthegift.com, and they can just sign on to get updates from me, but I will send them the top 10 ways to find the gift in their own life. And these are just things that I've witnessed, I guess, in my own journey, and I would love to share them. And I think you got a chance to look at those as well. And
I did. I resonated with every single one of them. They were powerful. So yes, please visit findingthegift.com and check them out. Thank you so much, Angela, for talking to me, taking this time to share your story. I live for this. I'm just so inspired by everything that you have been through, and I acknowledge you for your strength and your courage and your willingness and for sharing it all, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Denise. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you today, and I hope to stay connected with you. As we've already discussed, I feel like what you say and what you write is exactly what I would say and write. So we have a lot of common beliefs, and I look forward to walking the journey with you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.